Welcome to Resilience Brilliance. I'm Jena Taylor, resilience strategist and founder of Resilience Brilliance podcasts and programs. My show was born out of my own story of survival. After a traumatic brain injury, I couldn't walk, talk, or even remember. I had to start from scratch. Within months, I fought my way back, first to independence and eventually to rebuilding a six-figure career. My mantra became, reclaim my life, and it's the heartbeat of everything I do. Resilience Brilliance is for anyone struggling with adversity, burnout, or the weight of life's challenges, especially women and leaders experiencing life transitions. The show delivers inspiring stories, practical tools, and expert insights so you can overcome, rebuild, and reclaim your own life with heart, humility, and humor. Every month, I host free live resilience training. Please sign up using the link in the show notes. It's also right above here. And today, I welcome Alexa Sasha Marshall. She's a trauma-informed results coach, AI strategist, and narcissist abuse healer who coached for Tony Robbins before founding her private practice, Your Highest Self-Actualized. She equips high-performing professionals and entrepreneurs to step into their divine sovereignty, achieving their goals, expanding their influence, and building lives of purpose and fulfillment without burnout or people-pleasing. One client recently said, "You didn't just help me with my priorities, you gave me freedom." And I want to welcome you to the show. And before we begin, I want to warn you that we will be discussing suicide in the episode today and narcissistic abuse. So if that is sensitive to you, please do what you need to do to take gentle care of yourself. And thank you for joining us. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Alexa Sasha so she can tell us about her pivot point in her life. Go ahead, Alexa.
Well, first thing I want to say, thank you so much for having me here, Jena. You are beautifully resilient and brilliant at the same time, which is an awesome combination.
Thank you.
And wow, I think for both of us, we would probably say we've had to do a lot of pivoting in our lives. So it doesn't just start in one place, but the most recent pivot would be in my coaching journey and shifting from being a Tony Robbins coach to right after I led a conference called the Cycle Stops Here Conference. And it was a 4-Saturday conference dedicated to women to help them overcome the hardest cycles in their lives. So it could be narcissistic abuse. It was healing physical trauma. It was an organization of over 16 different speakers to help women to do exactly what you do, gain resilience. And after that pivot, I went straight into my coaching business, which is Your Higher Self-Actualized. And I've been helping high achievers, high performers ever since.
That's awesome. I love to hear stories like that. And it's so important, like, because I've done a big pivot with my career from being a sales and marketing professional up until last year when I dove headfirst into resilience training. And we become who we are meant to become through the things that happen to us. And if we look at those as teaching moments and growing moments, I look at back and I think how much I've grown. You know, people in our brain injury group, we always say, we don't wish a brain injury upon anyone, even our worst enemy. But I am a better person because I've gone through it. And we all pretty much agree that, you know, if you're freshly injured, you might not say that. But when you're in the recovery stages, you look back at it and you go, okay, I've become a better version of myself and I'm better in these ways. And I think that's part of our journey and important to recognize that, yes, bad shit happens to us, but how we respond to that, not react, how we respond
Yes.
makes all the difference in the world.
Yes, that is so powerful because one of the powerful ways that trauma can transform our lives is to help us understand how strong we are, how resilient we are, what support systems we have around us when we cannot be strong, because it's not all about, I could do it all by myself. It's no, who can we have in our corner, even when we're just surviving. So it is very powerful. And it sounds like it was an experience that led you to step up. And now you're able to step up for your clients too, teach them how to step up as well.
Yes, and I delayed that transition.
Really?
I resisted for a while, and finally I was like, "Okay, universe, I get it. I get it. I get it. I'm just all right. I embrace this and I'm doing it, and my soul has never been happier."
I love that. Ooh, and that's a depth to it. Your soul has never been happier.
Yeah. Well, when
Yes.
you are aligned with your soul's purpose, it feels good. It feels
Mm.
really good.
Hmm.
Do you want to would you like to tell your story now? How did you My question is, how did you get interested in narcissistic abuse healing? What is the story behind why you do what you do today?
That's a really big question because I studied psychology when I was in college. So I had heard of narcissistic personality disorder. It was one of those DSM diagnoses that we had to learn about. But thought it was just like this term that people would throw around for somebody that they didn't like, oh, this politician is a narcissist, this celebrity is a narcissist. And it wasn't until when I was a teacher, I had a coworker who was acting really erratically, and he would berate people in professional development meetings. He would show up late to work. He was a lot to handle, and I actually chose to work with him as my co-teacher. He came to me one day and he said, "Alexa, you're going to think I'm crazy." And I said, "Why would I think you're crazy?" Mind you, he was doing so much erratic things. But again, my conditioning, I was like, why would I think you're crazy? And then he revealed to me that he got diagnosed by his psychiatrist with narcissistic personality disorder. And that led me through a whole process of introspection and discovery. Because even before that, I recognized that his behavior was similar to specific people's in my families, specifically my mom. And then I wondered, why did I choose to work with him when I had an option of who I should work with? Why would I pair myself with that? And so there's this recognition of we think that we want the thing that is the safest for us, the best for us. But what our nervous system is attuned to is actually what is familiar. That actually feels like safety, even if it is chaos, even if it's a narcissist. And so I went through a whole process of healing, was therapy, but beyond that, it was coaching as well. And it was also doing yoga, so somatic healing, which is very important because the body holds the score. The body is what holds the trauma. The mind and the brain will continuously ruminate and think about the trauma. But in terms of releasing the stress, doing practices like yoga, meditative walking, strength training, swimming, whatever it is that your body really connects to is actually one of the best ways, but it's not commonly talked about as a way to heal from narcissistic abuse. And it took me years to find that out. And so my process of becoming a narcissistic abuse healer is recognizing there are things that I learned along the way that could shorten somebody's process. Because my process actually led me to an attempt to take my life. And I guess that's something we can get into now or a little bit later. I was in therapy, I was doing the work, and actually, I was taking 6 classes at the time. I was coming home, I was ironing my mom's uniforms, I was working 40 hours a week. I was doing everything and going to therapy to break what I thought was like generational trauma. I didn't understand and have the rhetoric that I was experiencing narcissistic abuse. And this can be something that's very difficult for people to understand that haven't experienced this form of trauma, that the people that are in it are actually the least likely to say, hey, that next person in my life was the narcissist. Because most times we are severely empathetic and severely, we have learned to guard the other person. They have actually trained us to guard them against criticism. So as I was going to therapy, the therapist was asking me all of these questions. Well, why do you overwork yourself? Why don't you feel safe enough to go to a party or let your hair down? Like, why don't you, essentially, why aren't you enjoying your life? And as we dug deeper underneath, I started to feel the weight of the situation I was in. Before, I was pretty numb and I was robotically going through life. But his questions were so deep, uncovering, that they became triggering. And because in his therapeutic process, there wasn't a plan to move forward, like, what do I do about what I am experiencing? I began to feel stuck. And I began to recognize how other people had support in their lives and I didn't have anyone. And I was actually I was the parentified child for my mom, and I was still being that at that grown age. And so it
And how
was
old
just,
are you at this point?
I was 21 at this point. Yeah. And it's like I couldn't conceive of a life that was different or better. I felt burdened. Like if I was just born to essentially be somebody's slave, essentially. Because she would come home, she would dump her emotions on me. I had to handle the very adult things, getting the rent payment, all of these types of things that a normal child wouldn't have to handle. I was doing that from 5 years old. And just one day I was just like, I'm done. And I could still hear the drip, drip, drip of the IV of the hospital room that I was in. And a psychiatrist came to me because they do an evaluation, and she was just like, why did you do this? And I didn't have words, Jenna. Like I that's the thing. When you're going through this, it's such a strong emotional experience, but it's not something that you can logically comprehend. The layers of gaslighting, manipulation, the internal conflict, it's very difficult to understand how to articulate that to somebody. And it was uphill from there, but it could only be uphill from there.
So talk about what happened when you were waking up and listening to that drip, drip, drip and realizing where you were and that your attempt was unsuccessful.
Mm,
Talk about what your mom said to you and how you
yes.
felt.
Well, I woke up and my mom was looking down at me. She was peering down at me in the hospital bed. And the first thing that she said to me was, so you are going to leave me? And it was like the weight of the world returned back on my shoulders even harder, because I realized I I was never going to get away from this. I couldn't get away from her expectation of me to play the role that she had set for me. So it was a feeling of overwhelm, of being stuck, of feeling cursed, just to put it in blunt words, just like I'm destined for this. Yeah.
Heavyweight, yeah.
Very heavyweight. Yeah.
And so you're in the hospital, you're recovering, you're feeling that weight. What how did you think you were going to move forward at that point?
I didn't know. I didn't know because at that time I was in therapy already. Like I was doing the work. So I didn't understand what the next steps would be. And honestly, after that experience, it was a whole bunch of trial and error. One of the greatest things that I can say to somebody who is recovering from such abuse is that the best thing that you could do, if you can do it, is to get away from the narcissist, to separate yourself from the narcissist. They call it going no contact. It's very important, if you can, to remove yourself from the environment that they are in, because they will just continue to re-trigger you. But if you cannot, finding a professional that could help you learn boundaries with them is so crucial. And I didn't know that. I found that out, when I got to like the last straw, the straw that broke the camel's back. And I said, no, I am moving. I'm going to Philadelphia. Like, forget it. If you told me that Elon Musk had a flight to Mars tomorrow, I would have hopped on that and went all the way up there. I was so done, Jen. I needed to go.
And were you living with her then?
Yes, I was living with her. It was a situation that I had done really well in high school, and neither of my parents had. It's so bizarre. Neither of them had prepared for me to go to college. There was no financial setup, and there was no almost like accountability on their end that they should help me. So I was financing my way through school, through working, but I couldn't also pay for my living. So I was living with her. And I think another thing for people that are children of narcissists, what we experience is a lot of delays in our development because our parents have not poured into us. Whereas oftentimes parents, emotionally mature parents, will teach their kids how to drive. They will set up college funds. They might even pay for your apartment when you first get a job. Our parents are not invested in our growth because they see us not as their children to be nurtured, but as extensions of them to gratify them. So that's it's almost like you come into adulthood, but you're in a deficit that you have to figure out how to overcome.
So, what are some signs that you would say people could look for? Maybe people are listening to this in the audience and they're like, I wonder if so and so is narcissistic. So, what are some telltale signs?
Ooh, this is big. So if a person struggles to take accountability for their actions, even though you are clearly expressing to them what they have done and how it's affecting you, they may not have narcissistic personality disorder because it's actually a criteria of 9 different symptoms, and they have to meet 5 of those symptoms, but they are highly likely narcissistic or emotionally immature. So that's a strong way off the bat to know. You're saying, hey, what you said yesterday really hurt me. And they're like, what are you talking about? Why are you so sensitive? And then there's this next Jedi trick they do called gaslighting.
Oh, yeah.
And this is all about the version of the story that you have in your mind that you know is true is not true. And it's not what happened. They didn't say what you're
I didn't
saying.
say that. I'd say that.
I didn't do that. How could you say that? I said that. That's something that
You
I'm
imagined
fine.
that.
That is another telltale sign that somebody is narcissistic. And also, so there's a dual side of this grandiosity thing that they have, complex that they have, where they want to be seen as superior. So there are narcissists that they have to have the fanciest car, they step out, they have to be, in the nicest outfit. But the other side of this grandiosity trait is actually those that play the victim. So there's actually narcissists that will be like, oh, I'm so poor. Nobody ever invested in me. No one ever loved me. And so they're always playing the victim to get other people's sympathy, to get other people to pour into them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 Yes.
You're like, I know this.
I know this. I do. I know this well.
Yes. If there was a pop quiz on narcissism, you would pass.
Goodness. Boundaries. We've talked about
Oh,
boundaries before the show, and you brought them up again. Let's talk about boundaries.
yes.
What do people who like, okay, so I'll start. Like I told you before the show, when I was in a relationship with Michael before he died, he was in and out of our shared home because of his alcohol addiction. He never drank in our home. So when he wanted to relapse or knew he was going to relapse, he would leave. Either he would pack up and leave, he would slip out when I would go somewhere. Like he never did it in front of me. And one time he actually just ran away during COVID. He ran away and I did file a missing persons report. I didn't understand how to be in relationship because the normal rules of a healthy relationship didn't apply to the relationship I was in. So I went to a therapist who specialized in addiction and said, I'm in this relationship. Help me understand why the normal rules of relationships don't apply. How come he
Mm,
keeps coming back after he leaves? And so I learned boundaries because
mhm,
apparently I didn't have boundaries growing up because I was very much overly responsible for my age. That got me through my family of origin safely. If I was the overly responsible one, I kept everything together. I could, it served me well then. But then when I went through my divorce and I was discovering I was overly responsible, well, it's not serving me anymore. So we go through these things and we learn things, but I just still didn't have established boundaries because I
mm,
didn't learn them as a child. And so I had to learn boundaries. And let me tell you, it was scary implementing them because people don't like the boundary, especially
no.
these people with these narcissistic traits. They don't like that you have put up this boundary
Mhm.
because they're not getting, like you said, they're not getting the energy fed into them that they've required all this time of you. So talk a little bit about boundaries, will you?
Yes, that's number one. Thank you for sharing your story. And I'm really glad that you were able to find that mental health provider that was able to teach you boundaries effectively because sometimes even the providers do not know how to teach us this skill. It's a really important skill, even for people that have not experienced narcissistic abuse. Sometimes we just don't get this information because our parents haven't learned it. And also, I used to be a school teacher, but they don't teach things like this in school either. So you're not getting it from anywhere. So I'm saying all of that to say you shouldn't feel embarrassed if you struggle to say no or you struggle to say to set to set the stage in things. You shouldn't feel embarrassed. It's a skill just like any other skill that you can learn. It's just gonna take some practice. I help my clients with this day in and day out because, my gosh, some of the best business owners are actually selfless to the point of their own destruction.
Mhm.
And so they care and they give so much and then they're depleted. This is when you recognize that at the end of the day, you are so tired that you don't have anything for yourself, no more left in your reserve. That's how you know that you don't have strong boundaries. And the best way to start to address this is to understand, where do you wish somebody would come in and just stop the other person from asking you what they're asking you or requiring you to do what they are requiring you to do. Because for people that do not have strong boundaries, everything feels like a requirement. I have a client, he's amazing. He is really active in the gym. And sometimes people come up to him because he's this big, really big, strong guy and they ask him things. And he's also great in his business as well. So they'll ask him things like business help. And then he'll come to the coaching session. He'll be like, I didn't get to do this thing that I committed to because I spent 3 hours talking to this man at the gym and giving him advice for free. And
Wow.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, it really
So in
does
that
affect.
example, what here, we'll test my boundaries. In that example, we'll pretend this is my business card. Carry my business card, carry him with you to the gym, right? Oh, I'd love to help you with that. Here's my card. Why don't you call me and we'll set up a time? Is that a good response to when somebody asks you?
Yes, that is actually a really good response. Yes, absolutely. That's perfect right there. I love that. And it's also a way to fuel your business too. So you're even thinking, I'm not even going to help him as a friend or anything like
Right.
that.
Because then it
I'm a
also
business.
tells that guy that hijacked, I like to use that word, he hijacked his
Mm,
time and he didn't get to do what he wanted to do, but it gives that the the person that he helped the message. Joe is here to work out just like I am, and I was just
mm.
disrespecting his time. And so it's a cue and it's like pattern disruptor.
Yes, it is. It's a pattern disruptor. I love how you said that because a lot of people don't even recognize that they are infringing on other people's boundaries. So you really do have to speak up and say, hey, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this right now. Here's my business card. This is something that, maybe we could talk about next time. It's really important to actually have those key phrases in your head beforehand. This is where like coaching or therapy would really help because in the moment, you will most likely default to just
Right.
helping the person. Right. So it's actually important, even if you don't want to go to a mental health provider, right? Just sit with a paper and think about the last experiences that you had and say, now I'm able to have hindsight with this. What could I have said to allow myself an exit or allow myself a better outcome and actually write them out? And if you can, do a role play with someone. I do role plays all the time with my clients because you need to practice. It's a muscle.
Mhm.
Building boundaries is a muscle. You need to practice it.
And the first 2 times you do it, you're frightened.
Yes. Yes. You are frightened because it's triggering a deep wound in you around being loved, being valued. If you say no and the other person in their mind is like, oh, she's mean, or they have a negative thought about you, the concern deep down is that you are no longer loved, you are no longer worthy, you're no longer valuable. But that's not the truth. The truth is you are your own individual person, and how another person feels about your boundaries is their own issue to deal with.
Yes, it is.
I want to ask you actually, because you have done so much work around boundaries, what would you say is the best boundary advice that you have been given, or maybe a skill that you picked up along the way?
Now I'm in the hot seat.
Hot seat.
Boundaries are so important because they honor who we are and detaching from the emotional charge that we expect the other person's response and bracing yourself because when you do this pattern interrupt with someone and they don't get the same response they're expecting after years and years of the same response, they're going to be like, what the hell?
Mm,
And then they're going to give it back to you. And so you have to have the courage to say it that first time. Now, this is different from the person who walks up to you in the gym, right? This is somebody who has a long, deep history with you. And
mhm,
you have to be ready and put your armor on because that person's not going to like it and they're going to push. They're going to push and they're going to push and they're going to do their typical magic,
mm.
which is harmful to us until they get tired. And then in my situation, the person hangs up the phone. And then I'm like, okay, not on me, not on me. And that's the thing. So we have to be prepared. And the first time you do it, I remember the first time I did it and I got that kind of a response. I felt terrible. I felt like I had betrayed this person. I felt like that I wasn't showing love towards this person because I had been trained all this time that that was the way I was supposed to behave and act and do. And once I learned boundaries, the relationship is strained because it's not equal.
Yes.
And it wasn't equal before, and now it's not equal because there's friction. There's friction because I have these boundaries in place and I am honoring my boundaries. And now this has been 5.5 years that I've
Mhm.
been practicing boundaries. And now I feel like I'm an expert. So it's like once you learn it and you practice it, and you have to really, when you first start doing it, it's scary because the response of that person is going to increase. The negative response will increase, and you have to prepare yourself. And so just envision the armor going up and this invisible barrier, right? The jabs hit the armor and they bounce back. It's a ricochet effect. And
Yes.
this person's getting these ricochets onto themselves and they don't know what to do with this because well, you've never acted this way towards me before. What's wrong?
Yes.
And they try to put it on you again. Well, I am honoring my boundaries.
Yes. Wow. I love that response because you brought up something that actually a lot of people are uncomfortable with, and that's friction. And that's why most people do not set boundaries, even if they know they need to set the boundary. It's the uncomfortability of being in that moment of friction with the other person and just letting that friction exist and standing your ground and knowing, well, it's either this friction exists or not setting the boundary will cost me something, either my time, my self respect,
Hmm.
my self concept, my self esteem. So that may be also another. I love to give success work. I don't call it homework because homework is what the kids didn't want to do in school. No, 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 we're adults. Success work. For anybody listening, I would say on that paper that you have with those responses of what you would say as boundaries, also take some time to list out what is it costing you to not set the boundaries? And
Yes.
are those costs less or more important than avoiding friction?
That's
Because
inc- that's incredible because when well that's how we get burned out. That's how we get depleted. That's how we get into situations where we think there's no hope, right? Like you and other people.
yes, yes, and we don't even notice how we are depleting ourselves. Because at that point, there's a lot of accountability that we need to take in every single situation that we're in. Radical accountability to understand, yes, there are narcissistic people, there are emotionally immature people, there are people that overstep. These people exist, and we have the power to interact with them in specific ways that affirm our self-respect. So being able to live with yourself saying no, it's a skill. That is another skill too. But it's like there's a master class. Oprah has a master class with I forget what he's like a FBI negotiator, and he explains like all of life is a negotiation.
Yeah.
Everything is a negotiation. And sometimes what you're negotiating is so valuable, but you're not even recognizing it. And that's where doing whether it's journaling, talking to somebody, that's where doing the reflection is really important because your life could be completely off track because you're not saying the certain things to certain people that you need to.
Yes, and you're not honoring well, I'm gonna say we. When we do that, we aren't honoring ourselves. And there's a difference, I think way I was brought up, it was Midwest ethics, and we take care of everybody, right? That's just Iowa nice. It's kind of a culture thing. But nobody growing up, I didn't know that it was okay to just have self-time, self-nurture, take care of
Mm,
myself. And one of the things I instruct my clients with is we have to it's the oxygen mask. We have to take care of ourselves first. If we don't
yes.
take care of ourselves first, we can't take care of the people we love and support the people we love around us, whether it's family or friends or animals. We cannot neglect our own health, and that's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. It's all of those. And we need to let people know taking care of ourselves is not selfish because growing up, if we did something for ourselves, people would label us, oh, you're selfish. That's
Hmm.
selfish. Well, no, not really. You not letting me take care of myself, that's selfish.
Yes, it is. And I always like to say, I love that you bring up this word selfish because it's such a triggering word for people. But literally, I used to be an English teacher. So that word self and then ish, we learned in school the ending ish just means like. That's it. So if you say blue-ish, it's like blue, right? Greenish is like green. Selfish is like being like yourself or liking yourself. There's nothing wrong with being selfish. We have twisted this word to make it like a nasty negative thing. But if you are not that, you do not get ahead to where you are supposed to be. And that's actually why I named my business Your Higher Self Actualize, because there is a potential self that we all know we have in those areas of life that you mentioned, your physical health, your spiritual health, your relationship, your personal growth. There's actually 13 areas of life that in my first session with clients, I go through all 13 and we do a very fun assessment of where they're at in these 13, your time management, all of these different areas of life. If you are not paying attention, you will be so derailed from being fulfilled in those
Hmm.
categories. And it's so interesting. If even one of those categories is significantly off, you will feel it deeply. So
Yeah.
it's very important to be selfish. Stay selfish.
I love it. I love it. Well, that reminds me, well, two things I want to bring up. And I just brought up this book. This is a book that I have read, and we've been talking about emotionally immature parents. Well, there's a book called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, and
Yes.
it's How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self Involved Parents. And it's by Lindsay Gibson. So
Hmm.
I'll put that in the show notes because if you're like, oh, I think maybe my parent might be, this helps you, give some insight, and information is power.
Yes. Information is power. And sometimes it's not just our parents, but it could also be a boss or a best friend and or a neighbor. And you're wondering, why does this guy always make noise when he knows I'm doing yoga? What's going on? So it, it is really important. I actually think that these types of conversations and also that book that you mentioned may be important for everybody to read and invest some time in, because what we're looking at in the world in terms of politicians right now and key figures, there's a lot of emotional immaturity, narcissism, quote unquote bad behavior that is coming from pathology and not being able to see other people as human beings, that lack of empathy. So I think we as a society where there's a lot being uncovered, that if you're like, why is this going on? What is the deeper psychological reason? Those types of books, these types of conversations would really help you to understand.
Well,
Because
and yes, and when we're more informed, we can make better decisions and better choices. And you go to a cocktail party and people all like want to talk politics or whatever comes up. How interesting would it be instead of talking about the politics, talk about the politicians and their behavior as
yes,
opposed to the ideology behind the politician. That would be
Yes,
much more interesting conversation material.
absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
And it could even go into a deeper discussion about the overall overarching concept
Mm-hmm.
too. Because I
Yes.
get that a lot. I travel, I'm a digital nomad. So whenever people see me, especially me being in Asia, they're like, "Where are you from?" And then I'm from New York City. And they're like, "Trump or Donnie." And they just want to things. But it's not like happy politics, it's like stressful politics that I'm trying to escape. So you have a good point there. Like,
All right, so now I'm going to go back to your story. So you're lying there in the hospital bed. How did you transform in that moment to your journey of where you are today? What are the milestones that moved you, and how did you handle and manage the relationship with your mother? Speaking of boundaries, what boundaries, when did you learn boundaries, and when did you start putting them in place with your mother? And how
what
did that go?
that's the biggest question in the whole entire you just stacked so much. Like if this was a burger, this would be like the most juicy burger for me to bite into.
Do you want some dressing with that? Some
Yes.
sauce?
And some fries and a little milkshake on the side.
I haven't had anything to eat yet this morning, so chocolate
Mhm.
chocolate malt, that would go down good.
I think it's actually good to start with my mother because that may be the gateway to answer all of these different aspects of that question. Where did I start in terms of healing what was going on with my dynamic with my mother? It was junior year of college. I was still taking all of those classes, but something in me said, if I have to be on this earth, I'm going to take one that I really love. And so I decided that I would take a painting class. And the first day I'm in the painting class, and the professor says, I never give A's. It doesn't matter what you do, I never give A's. And I'm looking at the calendar and it's past the point to exit the class. So I had to take the class. And I was just like, oh my goodness. Well, she gave us a final project, which was to create this big artwork, any artwork of our choice. And I made this big conceptual artwork that had numbers and colors and all these at the time, and everything was a lot. I put so much effort into this. To make that long story short, I got an A. But beyond that, which was very important for me at that time, my name starts with an A and ends with an A. This is always what I would say. So I need to get an A and an A plus plus, actually. What I learned from that experience was that the opposite of depression is not happiness. The opposite of depression is expression. Commonly, especially in the Western world, we've been taught that when we go through trauma, the best way to heal from it is talking to a therapist. Now, that is a form of expression, and that is great. However, there's other forms of expression that are really effective as well. And so even doing something like going to an art class, physically expressing yourself, hey, go and take that kickboxing class and kick someone's ass. Like, do that. Building something, writing something. You just imagine having a stressful relationship, but essentially understanding that you've been playing tennis. I don't know if your audience knows how great you are, Jena, at tennis. That is a form of expression
Well,
that is
thank you.
actually healing.
And you know what I wrote down on my little Post-it while you were talking? Um, you were saying expression, right? And w my play fuels my productivity. So
Mm,
how I start my day is exercise, typically. A
yes.
cup of coffee and then exercise, and caffeine-free coffee, so it's not even a jolting coffee.
Yes.
There is something so therapeutic for me when I hit that little yellow ball, and I don't hit it, I smack it. I smack it. I have a lot of power in my shot, and my facial expression when I go into it, I mean business. And when I'm receiving, I'm smiling, but when I hit the ball, I'm all intense. And people often comment on the difference between my smile when I'm waiting for the ball to come and then my serious. And I'm like, sometimes I'm just, and if I've had a mistake, the next point, I'm taking it out on that little yellow ball. So I smack that little yellow ball around, and it is the most beautiful feeling for me.
That I love that the cat just agreed. Yes, it is the most
Yes.
lovely.
Buzzy agrees. Amen, he says. Hear, hear. Well, that's funny. We're so aligned because I just wrote that down on my little post-it, tennis ball smack. Yes. So expression, find a
Yes,
way of expression.
of expression. And I also love how you said your play fuels your productivity. That's something that we have not been taught, but it's so true. It's so true. I often teach my clients that the word recreation is literally, it's the same as recreation. When you are doing something recreationally, it's recreating the energy that you have to go about the rest of your day.
Exactly.
We've been conditioned away from that, and that we should just work for hours and hours like machines.
Well, and to work first and then take care of ourselves afterwards.
Yes.
And the priority is different. It's shifted. We've years and decades of drinking this Kool-Aid of this is the way our culture is. And I love that one of the good things that came, or many good things that came out of the pandemic, but one of the good things is the corporate world having to disperse their staff and everyone that could working from home, because I've had a home office since 2001 and I've had clients all over the world. You don't need to be physically present in most positions. Now, certain
Mhm.
positions, yes,
Yes.
hospitals and clinics and stores, that is a requirement. But in a lot of positions, you can do the work
Remotely.
completely remotely. That's one of the good things that came out of the restrictions that came about is companies had to be less rigid. But now they're starting to require people to do hybrid, or some are requiring people to go back to the office, and they're attempting to get back into the old mode.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate because if someone's doing their job well remotely, I'm a firm believer in somebody doesn't need to be working 8 straight hours.
Mm.
I think if you are working from home, you get more work done if you're disciplined. There are people who don't know how to work from home. We should be teaching people how to be productive and disciplined and work from home.
Yes. Yeah.
I have the dogs. I could go for a walk because we should not be sitting more than 90 minutes at a time or standing more than 90 minutes at a time. And I have a standing desk, so I'll do sit and stand combinations. But the brain functions best when we take breaks.
Yes.
So corporations who are drill sergeants and very strict about their employees working. You have to be here and work 8 to 5. That's bullshit.
Mhm.
I call bullshit.
Yes.
And I teach burnout. I go into companies and I instruct on burnout and signs of burnout and culture flexibility. So anyway, off my soapbox. We need to
But
go back to you because you are still eating that big juicy sandwich, that big burger. We didn't finish. We're waiting. Everybody's on pins and needles.
and that was actually part of the reason why I left being a teacher. Besides being offered to become a Tony Robbins coach, it was the understanding that I was working better as a teacher remotely. And the special education students that I was serving, a lot of them got higher grades being remote because they were able to get one-on-one help from their teachers or small group instruction from their teachers. And also they weren't being distracted by other kids.
Focused
So
attention.
yes, exactly. So it's
And
and
probably a much better environment that fostered learning.
yes. And as you were saying, they could get up and actually go take a walk, come back to the essay that they were writing. They're not tethered to a seat. It was also me understanding that narcissism is not just an individual to individual thing. It can also be done by a system.
Mm. What was your journey from that moment in the hospital bed when you realized that your attempt was unsuccessful? And
Yes.
what happened with when did you learn boundaries? How did you learn boundaries? What happened? What was your mom's response? And bring us up to speed on that and where you are today with your relationship.
Absolutely. I think it's very important to be honest. I am still learning boundaries. The process of learning boundaries is a forever process, especially when your mind has been wired a certain way in order for you to feel comfortable giving other people your energy. So, one of the things that I recognize I'm a business owner, small business owner is shoot, I may have mastered boundaries with my mom, but now how am I mastering boundaries with my clients? Like how it just shows up in all of these different ways. And it's like a skill that needs to be reinforced over and over. Jena can't just say, I'm great at tennis already. I don't gotta play for the next month and I could
Right?
just come back and win a tournament. No.
Yeah. Practice,
So
practice, practice.
yes. And okay, my mom, what's going on with my mom? Nothing. And I want people to understand this. Just because you set a boundary, you go no contact. I'm not no contact with her. I'm limited contact with my mom. Doesn't mean that they change and doesn't mean that they get it. You would think that after all the attempts of explaining to her and being nice, all of these different things, that their behavior would improve. No. But that's also a key thing to understand, that the way that they're acting is actually not personal. They are wired, just as we are wired to give them our energy, they are wired the way that they are. And so we experience it and their negativity is directed towards us, but it has nothing to do with us. So my healing journey is completely separate from my mom or anything that she does. And it has to be because she's not improving. That's not her. I don't necessarily know if in this lifetime that's her journey. For her, I believe that she may just stay in the mode of, I did everything for my daughter and she just broke away from me one day and she doesn't want to tell me anything. She will just play the victim because that's what serves her. But what serves me is to build myself and other people up. So this is where healing is like an everyday process. Some days you're going to wake up really tired because in your dream state, your mind is processing something that happened when you were 5. And you don't know that. You may not know that, but it is. Or you're going to wake up with a pain in your back. Or you're just going to get irritated at someone and it's like, oh, this was just a small thing, but you're just.
Yeah.
So it's really the ability to be present for ourselves. And that's actually, there's a trauma psychologist named Gabar Mate, and he's very popular on YouTube. Trauma is not what happens to us. It is the separation from who we are and our ability to authentically express it.
That's fascinating. It's so spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to give hope to people that are healing, to say that your healing process is independent of that other person, and be glad for that. Because oftentimes there's a desire to get closure. Like if that person is going to say sorry after the years of whatever they did to you, no. But you will feel better when you look in the mirror and you have loved yourself to the point of actualizing on a goal that you have, or getting in the relationship that actually serves you. or reading that book that you didn't have time to because you didn't set that boundary that you meant to set 6 months ago.
Right.
Your healing comes through your progress.
Yes. So that's we're talking a lot about healing right now. So how do you truly heal narcissistic abuse?
Wow. Okay. This is a big question that I don't think a lot of people, even if there's a lot of narcissistic doctors, trauma doctors on YouTube and online, but they don't necessarily talk about how to heal from this. The way to heal from this is to really understand what is that rupture that happened. You are a being. You have a personality, you have certain interests, you have certain things that you want to express. What are those? Who were you before you got interrupted? And once you're able to identify that, then it takes courage, but actually go after those things with a fire underneath your feet. Like run, because you don't have time to waste. Your inner child is waiting for you to do and be those things. And it's so exciting. You're healing. The healed version of you is on the other side of pulling out all of those misconceptions of who you are and embracing this is me. I am beyond anybody's projection.
That's beautiful. And it brought me back to a time. Remember when I told you I learned I was overly responsible?
Yes.
So I worked on being more playful and finding that inner child and letting my inner child emote,
Hmm.
escape, peer, all of these things. And so right behind me, if you see, I have a shelf that has stuffed animals from my childhood. And there are
Hmm.
two small little dogs. They're Snoopy and Woodstock, and then next to them are two little puppies with long ears, and one's light colored and one's brown, and they were given to me by my friends Rhonda and Rochelle at one of my early childhood birthday parties. We've been friends from age of 5. We lost Rochelle. So anyway, but the dark-haired one was Rochelle gave me the dark-haired one and Rhonda gave me the light-haired one. Isn't that sweet? So they're up there and they watch over me when I work. And
Yes.
I have another shelf further down that wall. I have a large office and I have a fun lunchbox, and it says, golly, jump rope upside down, and then the other side is it's Einstein's bagels, and it has some frivolity on it. And I have a vase with all of the cards that people have given to me since I decided that I needed to have something as a reminder of love, that people love me. And
Oh.
when I get a card that touches me, it goes in the vase, and so by now, after all these years, it's getting very full and spilling out the top, but it's a this and I have a hula hoop in here. So I bring fun and frivolity into my office. You can see that the colors, right? Very, very much interested in fostering the environment where I spend most of my time so that I am reminded that there is an inner child inside me and I bring that inner child out. But when I first admitted
Mm.
that I was really responsible, because I didn't go, no, 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 no. That's what I did. No, no, that's just who I am. I'm just responsible. I'm not overly responsible. But after a few weeks, I accepted that I was overly responsible when I could look back and peel the layers back and go, oh my God, look at this. Look at this. Oh my God. So now I'm like embraced that I was overly responsible. But when I admitted that, I had to learn, how do I let this inner child, how do I become playful?
Mm.
But now, so that would have been in 2010. So 16 years later, it's so easy and I'm much more playful than I was when I was a young adult.
Mhm.
And you would think that as you age, you would get less playful. Not me. I'm much more playful and much more relaxed. And
Yes.
also, I think hitting my head helped with that too, because, I without the helmet, I would be a vegetable or dead. I
Yeah.
firmly believe that because of the impact that I had and, the 1 year of recovery it took for me. So, once you have something catastrophic in your life like that, you get a wake-up call, and I certainly have my fair share of wake-up calls that live every day like it's every moment like it's counts because we don't know when we pass. We don't know when our time is up. And so we must enjoy and live and play and let that inner child come out.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. This is so
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that you
Thanks.
have those two stuffed
They're
animals.
right up there.
They
Right
are
up
looking down
there.
at you. They're like your little guardian angels up there in the corner looking down
And
at
let
you.
me tell you, I've moved around a lot and they travel in the priority one box. I have an office box that's labeled priority one, and only the priority things go in that box. It's a big box, but those guys go in that box
Mm,
because they're that important to my well being and
mhm.
grounding me. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That's so important. I love how you said you're more playful now than you were as a child. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I actually have an adult coloring book.
I
And
love my adult coloring book.
yes, it's I'm the type of person where I'll go to Disneyland. I've never been before, but if I'm ever in a place where there's Disneyland, I'm going. Like, do the thing that we didn't get to do that society is just like, "Oh, you're too old. You're 50, you're 60. Why would you do something like this?" Listen, if you love to collect buttons, collect those buttons with a passion. Put them in a nice little case. Life is, as you said, life is too short. And the thing about trauma is that you were expressing this before. It's something that could actually build us. It's something that could actually direct us to a more meaningful life if we let it show us what we need.
Being open.
Yes,
I was very rigid, being overly responsible. I didn't have time for play. Everything was serious, serious, serious.
yes.
If I don't do it, who will? And now it's much more relaxed and my priority first is play. Except for today. I bent my rules and I worked first thing this morning.
Yeah.
Because we have to be flexible. I mean, you're around the world from me. So,
Yes.
yes, being
I'm glad you
flexible.
made it. Yes.
We're not done. We have more questions. Okay. This is a
Ooh.
big, big question. And I think this is a question that people can take home with them for a self introspection because we all have a pattern that that we repeat. Why does it seem like the same problem keeps showing up in our lives in different forms and people?
Mm.
That's a juicy one.
Because life is not happening to you, it is happening for you. And the addition to that, that I always say is life is actually happening through you. So when we have not healed something, we actually attract it. And just to make that point clear, again, when I was that teacher that had an option to work with 15 other co teachers, and I chose that one teacher that was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, it was familiar to me. So I went to it.
And I have to interject, and I'm sorry for that. A lot of times it's subconscious. We
Yes.
aren't even aware. We are
This is
not
it.
making this conscious choice that, oh, I'm going to align with this person because I'm a little messed up in the head. No,
Yeah.
it's completely sometimes not in a conscious decision that we're making.
Mhm. It's you are so correct because that's actually what Carl Jung says, the famous psychologist, the student of Sigmund Freud that came up with the collective unconscious and did all of this different work into understanding what's really at the root of these mental disorders and conditions that we have. It's all subconscious. It's all things that we can access if we do some questioning, inner questioning, but we don't know exist until we do that. And Carl Jung is actually really important for this question because he explains that we actually put ourselves in the same situation again with other people or with other things in order to resolve the past. So our brain is constantly looking for resolution. Our brain loves coherence when things make sense, right? It's constantly filtering out all of these different things around us and paying attention to what it can understand. So Wesley's like, yeah, he wants to. Okay, so this cat is the most special cat in the world because number one, he takes showers, but then also he needs to go for a walk 3 times a day, like a dog.
I love it.
He's like, I need a walk, I need a walk, I need a walk right now. But to continue, we are trying to resolve what we were in the past hung up on, what we couldn't break away from. And so that's the same reason why, unfortunately, people that have experienced abuse, even physical abuse, they'll sometimes end up in the same type of relationship over and over again. And it's why. Why is that? Actually, they're trying to figure out how can I get this person to love me without abusing me? And the way to address that is to understand the love is within yourself. So that's why we keep on repeating things over and over again. It's not like what I was saying before. It feels like a curse. It feels like I can't get away from this. Yes, you can. You're repeating it again because your brain is trying to find a way out. So give it a way out.
What's the first step someone can take if they find themselves resonating with the topics that we've discussed today?
Well, I would say number one, they should give themselves a hug because you probably need it. We were discussing some seriously heavy things. It is important to just give yourself some love. And beyond that, I'm here. You can contact me. You could book a complimentary. It's free for Jenna's audience because I love Jenna so much. So you could book a complimentary coaching session with me. You can also ask yourself what you need and I always say it's courage because when I was in the depths of my depression, there's this Sia song, the same artist that has that song on Unstoppable. I'm unstoppable. I'm a Portia with no breaks. It's like all over her social media, this song. She has a song called Courage to Change. And that song, she's just repeating over and over again. Have I the courage to change? Have I the courage to change? And it's such a powerful song. Ask yourself. That's one of the things that you could do. Have you the courage to change? And if it's no, that's okay for now. It may be the best next step for you to seek out somebody that could help you unbind that, a mental health professional, a friend. And if it's yes, take the action. Take
The fire under your feet.
the fire under your feet that gives you wings.
That's right. Well, that reminded me of when I was making the painful decision to divorce my husband. I went to a class called Rebuilding When Your Relationship Ends, and we were still married. We were living separately, not because of the marriage. We were living separately because our daughter went to a specialized high school. And I was reading the book and going to these classes, and I was so afraid to break up my family. I was paralyzed. I was so afraid I might be making the wrong decision. I was paralyzed. I was afraid that we couldn't afford it. I was afraid, afraid, afraid. And up until that point, I'd never been fearful of anything. Someone told me about this book, and it's a tongue to the comfort zone. Or what if you're riding a dead horse?
I never heard of this
Have you
book.
heard of that one?
No. I like the title though.
Yeah. So The Comfort Trap, or What If You're Riding a Dead Horse. And it is by Judith Sills, Sills. I read it as a workbook. It took a while to get through it. but it gave me the courage that I needed so that I wouldn't be stuck in a relationship that was unhealthy, where he wasn't willing to make the changes he needed to make. And it gave me that courage. So if my advice to anyone who is afraid to make a decision, afraid to do something they know in their heart, their soul, their head, whatever that they need to do, this book, The Comfort Trap, because you were saying earlier in the show, we gravitate to things that are familiar
Yes.
because we're comfortable, we know it. Even if it's not satisfying, even if it's unhealthy, when we leave that area of discomfort or the comfort that's unhappy, that we're unhappy with, and we wanna go to this place that's our desired outcome, this period in here, I call that transitional shock.
Mm.
Because as we move towards the desired outcome, we're not there yet. At about here, we recognize I can identify with my desired outcome. But when we're over here, we identify with that what's familiar,
Yes.
that thing that we don't like, but it's familiar. And when we get to the middle, we're like, "Ooh, I got, if we're here, I got, well, I see that in the rear view mirror, but I also see this." And so we're motivated to then move the needle more towards our desired outcome. And so this book helped me let go of wanting to stay stuck.
Yes.
And we don't want to stay stuck, but we're kind of glued in place because
Mm.
it is familiar and it's
Yes.
and it's comfortable and we know it. And when
Yes.
we know something, it's difficult to move away from it, even if we know in
Mm-hmm.
our mind and we know that it's just not right and we need to make a change. So this book helped me with that
Yes.
immensely.
Yes. I'm really glad you shared that book because you're right. The devil we know feels better than a devil we don't. And
Right.
actually, sometimes it's the devil we know feels better than the God that we could be experiencing or the inner expression of divinity that we could be experiencing, but we don't even know that. We don't know what's on the other side.
Well, and in the book, the lesson that you learn is the fear of the thing is bigger. We make it bigger than the thing itself.
Yes.
The fear of the thing, we make the fear of the thing so much bigger in our head. What did I say? I couldn't possibly do this. Am I breaking up my family? Is it the wrong thing to do? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And there's no way we could afford it, right?
Mm.
All of these things were replaying in my head because I was trapped in this fear and I
Yeah.
made it so big. And then when I did it, I looked back and went, well, that book was right.
Yeah, right?
That book was right. I did. I made it so much bigger than I needed to. So I like to tell people if you're going through anything like that, this book, and I think this is a book that every high schooler should read. I think it should be required reading because if we nipped these things early,
Mm.
we would be able to be free and soar the way that everyone intends as we go through school and mature and enter our adulthood.
Yes. I agree as well. I agree. That's actually part of why I left the education system to become a coach because I realized these are the types of lessons that these kids should be learning, but that's not the way the education system is going currently because there's no time to waste. People need the help that you have.
Yes,
Yeah. We did the thing. We did
we
the
did
damn
it.
thing.
And it was beautiful. Thank you for sharing your personal story. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Last thing,
Mm.
what is the best part of your digital nomad lifestyle?
I like this question. The thing that I have been incorporating is doing pet sitting. When I was 8, I asked my mom, "Can I have a brother or sister?" And she gave me a miniature poodle named Shiloh. And I had Shiloh up until the age of 27. She was my ride or die. Everywhere I went, I mean, she was subway surfing in New York. She was in movie theaters. She walked the Brooklyn Bridge. Like she was always with me. So I love to be in these environments. Right now, I'm in Singapore. I just came from Malaysia, and I was also in Hong Kong. Every single environment that I'm in, I love to be with I call them a furry friend, honestly, because they make the experience so much better. I'm walking, I know I have to walk outside because of Buzzy. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes it could be intimidating to get outside in a new environment, but no, the animals make me feel safe to stop being an introvert and
Well,
get
and
out.
not only that, but when you're with like dogs or kids or animals and kids, that's an icebreaker, an automatic icebreaker.
Yes,
You
it
have
is.
something to talk about with other people. Yeah.
Yes, especially a cat on a leash.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's late. You probably want to get to bed. I am just so grateful that you spent this time with us today, sharing everything that you have to share.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody if you need help, find it, contact Alexa Sasha or myself or someone in your area that can help you find hope, deal with narcissistic abuse, heal. We're all about healing our journey. And like I said before the show, when things happen to us, it's a moment for us to recognize it's a growth moment. We are meant to grow from the shit that we experience and to share what we learn with other people. And speaking of sharing, if this show resonated with you or you could think of someone who would benefit, please share this show with people so we can help more and also be a friend and subscribe.
Mm.
And remember, once a month, I host the free live resilience training. Would love to see you join me. And until next time, be real, be resilient, reclaim your life. Ciao.